Awesome. How's it going, Ben?
Good, man. Sorry about the mishap there. I started my own meeting with myself, which even I didn't want to attend that one.
Okay,
So you
cool.
closed out your Mustang place, huh?
Yeah, closed it out. Closed it out about 6 or 7 days late. Just some legal paperwork on the seller side, but ended up going through just fine. Title company didn't have any issue. It wasn't so delayed that the rate expired or anything like that. So I think it's getting worked on now, and I think it should get posted hopefully this weekend. Yes.
Okay. What are you going to rent it for? Do you know?
I think we're going to start the posting at 1545 or 1550. With the last tenant, I think stayed there for a couple of years, and it was at 1400. So we're doing some minor internal updates, like resurfacing some of the tub and shower and whatnot. So I think that's where it's going to get posted at first. So we'll see where it comes in at. I think being my first investment property, I put my numbers in pretty conservatively. So
Yeah.
it should be looking pretty healthy if we can hit 15 or 1550.
What
Yes.
type of loan did you do on that? Was that a cash deal or did you finance that?
No, I didn't do cash deal. I did what did I do? It was 20% down. I think the rate was 3.25%. And this was like, I think we locked the rate mid or late February. So it's come up quite a bit since, at least that's what I'm
Mm-hmm.
seeing. And then I think we ended up even like raising the price by roughly like 3%, and then having the seller contribute basically that money back to take care of some items that he didn't want to take care of on his time. So we sort of split the cost on it.
Did you do a 20 or a 30 or 15-year loan
Sorry,
or?
30 year. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think my thought is going for cash flow so that
Mm-hmm.
I can sort of restore the bank balance, and then maybe in, I don't know, however many months or a couple of years, then come back for another.
Yeah, I mean, the cash flow is obviously better on the 30-year.
Yeah.
I have loans on both 30 and 15. It's nice to see the principal get paid down a little quicker, but the cash
Mhm.
flow is good on the 30-year.
Yeah. Yep. Definitely. We'll see. I mean, I'm actually just before this, I think there was the original agent that I worked with found an off-market deal. And so we've got an offer out that might get accepted today. So we'll see what we
Oh,
end up
nice.
refinancing there. Yeah. Yes.
What part of town is that in?
It's in Edmond. I'll share the detail. I don't want to jinx anything yet, so we won't get too into it. I'll wait for us to maybe progress more before I share details.
Can you
Yeah.
tell us what street it's on?
Oh, I don't even remember the exact street. I honestly, when I first started, I was like looking only at Edmond, so there's so many
Mm-hmm.
street names in my head.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
I have to go look that up. Yeah. Yes. So we'll see. Let's see.
Where was the first property you were talking about
The
at?
first one's in Mustang. It was off of Linden Street, and yeah, we just closed on it 15 days ago, about 2 weeks ago. Yes.
Sorry, I think I might have joined late. Did you say that was on market or off market?
That was on market. Yeah, interestingly enough, it was 640 East Linden Lane. And for some reason, it had been on the market for like 45 or 60 days already. And just kind of through the MLS notes, the pricing history, you could see that over the last 2 years, the seller had been trying to sell it, and then it just never even went into pending, kind of trimmed the price. And so I think we ended up getting in, I think it sold for 178.3, which is roughly about what he wanted for it like 2 years ago. And I think the price per square foot pretty much matched the comps in the area. So it wasn't a stretch for either side.
Are you gonna have to do any repairs or anything like that?
I think we're putting in about, I want to say 1,800 just to get it sort of fixed up, including, and maybe you all can tell me if it's a good price. I think we're getting for 350 or 400 to resurface the tub, and just getting some of these small nicks and dents in the wall fixed up. And then structurally, not urgent, but we had a structural engineer, two structural teams come in and say, sort of the way the garage has sort of three external walls, getting the brick sort of re-anchored to the studs, and then some non-urgent but recommended attic roof reinforcement, sort of adding some 2x4s vertically. So I thought, hey, I really want to limit the liability, and that's where we ended up increasing, that's right, we increased the price by 2.5K from the original agreed price, and then the seller added 5K to closing. So we sort of ended up splitting some of those costs, and I think the estimates ended up thankfully coming in under what we'd forecasted. So it didn't end up taking, it's not really affecting like the cash on cash too much.
When was that house? When was that house built, Edwin?
2006,
Okay.
2009, something like that. And so he had a new roof put on it too, just before closing. And I think HVAC was resurfaced, but didn't need any work done. But yes, not anything too old compared to sort of what I've been looking at more recently. Yeah.
Well, hey, I wanted to share some market stats with you guys. We have a guy named Brian Mignosa with Stewart Title. He comes in our office once every quarter or so and does the whole presentation on how the market's doing. I won't go over everything, but there were a couple of things that really caught my eye. So let me know can you guys see that?
Yeah.
Yep, we got it.
All right. So these were stats from February of 2021. So this is all MLS data, so it's all retail data. The numbers that jumped out to me are days on market. So that's a median. So that's the average after, half the homes were less than 9 days on market in MLS and half were more than 9 days on market before they had a contract. But he explained to us that an average buyer seller market where it's even is about 6 months supply. And as of February 2021, we had 0.7 months supply. So just insane demand right now, just without the inventory. And this is data from February over the last couple of years. Let me move you guys so I can.
Cool. I just linked an article in this chat about a Sacramento house that wanted to sell super fast, and they did an interview with the agent. He mentioned something similar where, you've got 0.7 months supply and hundreds of buyers. So it's an interesting short read.
Yeah. But this is active listings relative to the last few years. And you can see how the number of active listings continues to decline as we move into 2021. So 64% less active listings than 2 years prior. So that's obviously because homes that are active go under contract very quick. And then also just people aren't putting their house on the market like they used to. These are pending sales. So this speaks again to the demand, a 24% lift in January 2021 from 2020 of homes that are currently pending, or at least in that period that were pending in MLS. And then this is closed sales. So January, February, usually pretty slow months in the real estate industry. But we closed about 25% more transactions citywide in 2021 relative to 2019, where we had 1469 closed, then a 17% increase in 2021. And so I thought this was really interesting. Whether it's good or bad is kind of up to your perception. I know a lot of the old dog investors don't like how things have appreciated because they can't find deals. But this is a year over year increase in median sales price. Again, half are below that, half are above it. A 4% increase in the last 3 months. I've heard 10% increases in the last 6 months in terms of just market appreciation. But this speaks to just the level of price points that sellers are getting from a median perspective. And this looks at days on market. Days on market is kind of if something's on the market too long, it kind of has a stink on it. Edwin mentioned his house had been on the market several times. Oftentimes people try to swoop in on, sometimes I set a filter for days on market 60 plus, because the presumption is those folks are more apt to take a lower price point. But days on market usually peak in January and February, but that is not the case here. Anybody wants a copy of this, I can easily email it out to you. This was showings year-over-year increase. That just speaks to, I think there were 8.8 showings per listing, and in previous years there'd be about an average of 4 listings per showing before it went under contract. And then this is probably the biggest slide, just the supply in the market is at historic lows. So we have 0.7 months supply.
And sorry, Ben, my monitor is kind of small. If we go back one slide for the
This one
for the x-axis, what's the rightmost data point? Is that saying January 2021? The rightmost
x-axis
on the very bottom. Yeah, what is that?
I do not know. I'll email this to you, Edwin.
What's the latest date? I guess is that February is the last data point on there.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Interesting. Yeah, I'll be curious to see what happens maybe 1 or 2 meetings from now, since the rates have just kind of gone up. And I don't know, Anna, if anyone can share, maybe Ben, what you're seeing with the offers you're helping your clients put in. But I've heard that 1% increase in interest rate, which is what I've been seeing, equates to roughly 10% less buying power. So
yeah,
I'm interested to see how that.
We're still seeing homes
translates.
go over asking price, and but the appraisers aren't really. They're giving us credit for appreciation. I had an appraiser tell me this week that he gave me 1% credit appreciation, which ended up being around $9,000 for just the last 6 months. Over what the comps told him.
Okay.
So, any house kind of really under that 250 mark is getting multiple offers where people are putting over asking price just to lock it up. And then it's not really appraising every time. So then they either have to go with the appraised price, or often what a lot of buyers are doing are coming up with cash to not always split the difference, but get closer to that contract price versus the appraised value. But this side right here is top of mind for a lot of new home builders and remodelers, is the price of lumber and how it's gone up just in the last 9 months. Like a sheet of OSB is kind of the one metric that people measure the market by. Sheet of OSB a couple years ago would be $6. Now it's around $45. So that will affect new home prices moving forward, because those homes won't be as affordable to build. Oklahoma City has, historically, there's some kind of car wash type builders like Home Creations, Ideal Homes, Homes by Tabor, that can build new construction under $200,000. That might not be the case here in the next couple of years if some of these lumber prices don't go down. And that is all I had. So if anybody wanted a copy of that, just let me know and I can email it to you.
What do you think this means for the spring? I mean, spring is typically when home sales kind of ramp up. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I mean, historically, if you look at the home sales in the MLS just on a graph, it typically starts around here in January, and then it'll go up and peak around the summer months when people are buying homes for schools, and then it starts to dip as we move into the holidays.
So, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so it's just an issue of inventory right now. There's just not enough homes going on the market to meet that demand. So unless we just have a flood of sellers, we'll probably be kind of in the same situation. Brett, I don't know if you're paying attention, but I'm sure you have an opinion on that question.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I had a crystal ball and I could tell you what was going to happen. I'd be a lot richer, but there's just there's
You're already rich enough, Brett.
Yeah, rich and other things, I guess. But no, the problem I've been hearing a bunch, for months, everyone was getting away with saying prices are great, sell your house, and finally the market is kind of like, okay, well, say I get this, you have to buy in the same market you're selling in, right? And so they can get a great price for the home, but there's nowhere for them to move to. And I think that's becoming more prevalent to potential sellers than it has in the previous months. And so not many people can just put a house on the market and not know where they're going, have that freedom. And you're not competitive with contingent offers in this market either. So you kind of have to juggle the process or have a contingency plan that I can move in with my parents or my brother or a rent house or something like that. Otherwise, you're just you're stuck in a rock and a hard place as a seller. So it will continue. I think my personal opinion is there's a huge amount of pent up demand, a supply that didn't get a chance to list or sell last year. And I think there will be more come on in the spring as we get closer, but I don't know if it's going to be enough to cool down what we're doing.
Mm-hmm. And I've heard that too, that some sellers that may have been a little older had COVID concerns. They didn't want people coming in and out of their house for health reasons. Also, potential job uncertainty. Somebody didn't want to sell their house because they didn't really know what was going to happen with their job. And also, people working from home are less apt to want to have showings during the day or even at night because they're spending pretty much all their time at home. So hopefully what Brett said is right. You know, a lot of those folks who plan to sell in 2020 come to the market in 2021. But we are seeing a lot of out of state or folks moving, not just investors, but folks actually moving to Oklahoma City from out of state that have been priced out of another market. I have one client, they are living in Austin now. They're selling their house in Austin to a California couple. And so and then the Austin couple's moving to Oklahoma City. And they were telling me that property taxes have gone up so much in Austin that people are being priced out of their homes just on the taxes.
Interesting.
Their tax bill they said it was like a 1,500 square foot house, pretty average house in a home in a town called Cedar Hill, just outside Austin. Their annual property tax bill is $8,500, which people in Edmond complain about $2,500. But if you're not a senior citizen where your property bill is capped, you could have 20 years of equity out of a home and be priced out of it just on the taxes. And so the folks who can afford to pay that are the ones who cashed out in California from their appreciation and are moving to places like Austin and Dallas. But I thought that kind of that migration of property values, how they kind of de-escalate all the dominoes that create these ripple effects in the housing market. But that's just one anecdote.
Interesting. And do you know if that's because the property tax percentage has increased in whichever county Austin's in, or is it more so the county has said, let's go reassess everybody now because we want to?
Well, there's been so many homes that have sold for, way more than they would have 5 years ago, just because of demand from people moving from California. Mm-hmm. And Texas doesn't have any state income tax. So they collect the majority of their tax through sales tax and property tax.
Gotcha.
And so when those valuations go up, every time a home is sold, it's reassessed as it pertains to its tax base. So when things start selling, for $100,000 more than they would have 2-3 years ago, then the taxes are reassessed. And then, so if your neighbor's house sells for X amount, then they're going to start reassessing your house.
Oh, so they will reassess a house that is not being sold if a comparable house is. Mm-hmm. Oh, okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Because it's now worth more. So
right.
Your home is worth more, and so we're taxing you at a certain rate, and so your taxes will go up.
There was I don't know if it's because California does it way differently than everybody else, but there was a huge proposition, 2 of them that were trying to get passed. One that did get passed last November that's affecting a lot of people in California related to property tax and refreshing. So it's interesting to hear how other states are doing it.
I also heard California was going to try to recapture some of that appreciation of folks who cashed out on their home in California, made maybe $500,000 and are taking that capital to other states to invest in those states.
Yeah, what I've heard is the title company or the lender. I think the title company keeps a certain percentage of your profits to pay the state. So it doesn't say like hit your pockets and then you pay it 6 months later. It's at closing. Oh, Ben, it's $60,000 of tax. That's what I've heard from somebody. Who would I heard?
Would that be
somebody who does active investing?
State tax, or it wouldn't be a federal tax?
No, it would be. I think it's county and state. I think it's mostly county. Yeah, but that way they're, the money's not leaving leaving their purview. Yeah. Interesting.
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 So Kelsey, what do you got going? Did
I had a
your
question. Do you not have, so in Oklahoma City, do they not reassess your taxes every year on your properties? Because they do in Kingfisher County.
yeah, it's
And they do in our
reassessed, but it's not going to go up exponentially, at least in Oklahoma County, unless they're going up because the property values in Austin and places like Austin are going up so much. So those homes are being reassessed at a way higher value. So if your neighbors, if you've been paying like a property tax maybe on $300,000 of value, but all your neighbors around you sell their homes for $500,000, well, the county's going to start reassessing yours at a higher. Now, the homes are reassessed annually, but when all your neighbors are selling their homes for way, way more, your taxes are going to go up. It's not an incremental increase. It's a
Interesting.
like
Okay.
50% increase, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because we get ours, like we get our tax things every year that they've raised it and they reassess.
They never go down.
So.
Yeah, they never go down.
But you could go in and argue with them too. They can lower it sometimes.
Yeah, I've heard that, especially older folks who are on a fixed income. They don't own anything else on the house. Oftentimes they'll make concessions to those folks, but I've never heard of anyone trying to do that in Oklahoma County.
My dad did it all the time, but he didn't Kingfisher and Canadian.
Was he pretty successful?
Yes.
Okay.
But of course, there's so few, there's only like less than 15,000 people in Kingfisher County. So you know everybody. So it's not like you're talking to a stranger.
Yeah, that's true. Sam, what's going on with you these days?
Not a whole lot. I've been trying to keep my eye on any duplexes that come up, and I convinced my wife to consider house hacking. So that's kind of what we've been looking at. Not a ton comes on the market. There has been one that has been on the market, and I've been talking to my agent about it, and the numbers are just kind of, if I squint, I can kind of make them work. And so I don't know, I'm kind of balancing diving in and going for something as my first property, or just waiting until a really good deal comes along. So that's kind of what I've been doing. It's really just one or two things that I've been keeping my eye on, and it's probably going to pass me by pretty soon. But again,
remind me, were you were you going to use a VA loan? Were you a veteran?
No, I'm not. I've been looking at FHA loan. That's what I've been talking to lenders about.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, like I said, just trying to balance. I feel fairly educated. Obviously not. I'm not very experienced, but so I'm trying to balance just taking the knowledge that I have and diving in and figuring it out as I go, or play it a little safer as my first investment property and make sure that everything's 100% good to go. Oh, as 100% as I as close to 100% as I can get. So that's kind of what I'm thinking through.
Yeah, but don't let good can be great can be the enemy of good. Sometimes you're waiting for that 100%. Everything's perfect about it, and you never take action because you're waiting for all the stars to align.
Right.
We did. My wife and I represented. It was two brothers from California. They bought a duplex. It was a top bottom, and so they're doing a house hack. They're a couple young guys. They work at Discount Tire, so it's easy for them from a lifestyle perspective. But I think when we said they pay like $295, Jack, and the rent downstairs was almost covering their whole mortgage. So.
Oh, awesome.
Wow.
I think you're really smart at your age to look at that. I wish I had.
Yeah, what I'm looking at is one side of the duplex is remodeled. Someone bought it in February, remodeled one side. There's tenants on the other side. And so this one side is, my wife is excited she would be excited or content with moving in and moving our 5-month-old in, and that's kind of how I've convinced her to do this. But the flip side of that is the listing price is just really expensive, and so at least more expensive than what I try to aim for. So
How's
that
it
just
going?
makes the
in the
monthly.
last couple of weeks. I feel like I've seen this one. It sounds very familiar.
Yeah, it's been on the market for a few weeks. It's like Council Northwest Expressway.
I see. Okay. I would say, Sam, if maybe we can connect outside of this, but if there's like a certain budget that you're comfortable sharing, the seller I'm talking to right now it's actually a quadplex, but he supposedly has a bunch of duplexes and triplexes that aren't on the market yet. And yeah, I would love to connect him with, everybody here on the call. I want to also mention how helpful Ben has been, just bouncing ideas, and I'm sure Ben would be able to help you with this seller as well if this person has the inventory he's saying he does have. So I'd love to make that connection.
Yeah, for sure.
Does this person have
Let's do that.
triplexes and quadplexes in Edmond?
Yeah, so this one is actually it's actually technically 4 separate condos, but they're all side by side. So from a financing perspective, unclear if it's going to be one business loan or if it's going to be 4 separate conventional loans. I'm not in a position where I'm worrying about maxing out 10 Freddie and Fannie loans. I'm not going to pick up 10 properties right now. So yeah, that's just some of the thought. But he mentioned he's got like a triplex or 2 and then a few duplexes. It sounds like he and his partner sort of in the early 2000s sort of went through and just started building up these places. Yeah.
Is he an agent? Do you know the off-market
I don't
seller?
think so. No, he's not an agent. So I'd love to connect him with whoever on this call to see how we can get some more inventory shared through the group.
Okay, yeah. His name's
Yeah.
not
Yeah, that
John,
sounds
is it?
awesome.
No, it's not. It's not.
Okay.
But yeah, I'll know. We'll probably have an update in the next like 24 hours. And just hoping. I think I'll hear back from him tomorrow.
So I have I guess he'd be my ex-uncle. So he was married to my aunt for years. But I recently reconnected with him. He has, I think like 120 units just in Edmond.
Whoa.
Yeah, I know. But so I went to his house just to pick his brain. And he's half crazy, but I mean, he's got a lot of good methods, but it was one of the stranger coffees I've ever had. But
120.
he got in on a lot of stuff very, very early. And I mean, he's sitting on several vacant properties in some really up and coming areas in Edmond with kind of like the guy who buys the Mustang that's broken down. He's going to fix it. I'm going to get to it, but never really does anything with it.
I see. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'd love to potentially get one of those from him someday, but yeah, there's a lot of, landlords out there, 70 plus that have a ton of properties that, especially with all this COVID stuff and eviction moratoriums, I could see a lot of those folks just kind of wanting to cash out.
Yeah.
In the next couple of years.
Hey, Ben.
Yeah.
So I have a client that I've been working with. I can't remember if you sold one of their houses or not. Did you ever meet Steve and Ray, the 2 oil guys that own a bunch of properties?
No.
I don't
Was
know.
that the one you and Connor were working with?
No.
Buy that stuff
no,
on 50th Street?
No,
Okay.
different guy. Anyway, I picked up in my first year of having my license. I picked up this guy as a client, and they've got 20 some properties, and they just went through and split them all. They own them in partnership, but just 2 old guys. They don't ever want to sell, and they had one that I wanted, and he wanted a price that was too high. Didn't make sense for me to buy it, but their thing is they do rent to owns on almost all their stuff. And so which is essentially, it's all the same: owner finance, rent to own, lease purchase. They're all basically the same thing. But we're in the process of negotiating that because he just wants to keep the property and it gives me access to the property. And so we're trying to get together on numbers. But he'd basically owner finance it for me, and then the one we're looking at is going to turn into an Airbnb, so it might have a little more meat on the bone. But if he didn't want to let it go, it could be a way for you to get into the property
Yeah.
and start paying towards it, get ownership of it, and at least create a spread for yourself potentially. You want to
Yeah,
make sure the
so-
documents are good on all of it, obviously.
Yeah, and so would that be something like a 20-year seller finance agreement? You would eventually take title, but not until.
So yeah, so there again, all those are a little bit different. What I believe what they do is actual lease purchases.
Mhm.
And so you give them a down payment. I think they normally take $1,500 to $2,500 down payment from the person that moves in. And then each month it's just, they do exactly what a mortgage company does. They take interest and the rest of it applies to principal. It's all front loaded and on an AM schedule, just like the bank is. But every month you're paying it down what you owe him. And then at any time you could exercise your option to purchase.
Mhm.
And so if you pay it down for 3, 4, 5 years, now you're buying it at 150 instead of 160 or whatever, whatever
Yeah.
the numbers look like. Again, you want to make sure the
A lot of those
paperwork
guys,
is
they just want
buttoned
the
up.
cash flow. They just want their cash flow every
Yeah.
month.
Exactly. They don't want to get rid of that. And so if you can provide them that, they basically make him the bank, and then you get the benefits of the asset as well.
Yeah, and so I'm in the middle of something right now. So I did a seller finance agreement with a company. Their business model is built on people putting down money to get in a house because they can't get traditional financing. And then when they default, which they oftentimes do because they're low credit, then the seller takes back the property. So they collected your monthly rent and your option to purchase, and then they just take it back and then recycle it to the next person. So I entered into an agreement on this property because it was a really good deal. It was like 20% below market value. It's still a good deal. But I went to exercise my option to purchase, and there were several different liens on the property from even before when the seller I'm working with acquired it at a tax sale. And then in reading my document, the seller only agreed to provide me a quitclaim deed, not a general warranty deed, which in order to get title insurance, you need a general warranty deed. So I'm having to do a quiet title suit to remove those liens so I can get the property in my name. So in hindsight, I should have paid a title company $100 just to do a quick title search on there to see if there's any liens, because I was completely blindsided by it. Because it's wrong of me to presume, but I presumed the seller had clear title to it because he was giving me, or she was giving me, the option to buy it, and that just wasn't the case. So that's something if I enter into one of those agreements with Press Guy or anyone else, that's something I'm definitely going to do. Anybody else got anything going on?
It sounds like there's a lot of inventory coming up in the next year, 18 months in Edmond. I'm getting a little concerned.
Well, I do think a lot of those older landlords, they do like the cash flow, but I think they some of those guys are eventually going to want to let go of some of that stuff, or they pass away and
Right.
their kids want to let go of it. The guy I told you about that has 120 plus in Edmond, they are all in his name. He's never created an LLC.
Yeah.
Every property is in his name. And I'm like, he's never been sued somehow. He says, I always just figure it out. But when and if he dies, it's going to be a mess. Probate.
Oh,
Because
and
nothing's in trust.
nothing's, oh, I see. Oh, my. Yeah, that sounds like a nightmare.
Mm-hmm. But well, we got somebody else on here, iPhone. Didn't know if you guys, Mr. iPhone, had anything to add. Did you guys, I know, Edwin, you weren't on the call, but did you guys like having Rose from P3 Accounting last week?
I couldn't
I
make
thought she
it
had a
last
ton of
week.
value.
I think you sent a link to the recording, right? I still need to watch that.
I honestly, I didn't record that. I forgot to hit the button.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, she had a lot of good input, and she might join us again in the next 3 to 6 months, and just talking about specific topics, accounting relative to real estate versus just the broad topic that we discussed.
Okay.
Has anyone had experience with inheriting tenants?
Don't do it.
Don't?
No. If you can avoid it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
And,
oftentimes somebody's selling the house
Because of that.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
I've inherited tenants, and some have been good, some have been bad. But in an ideal world, you could pick your own tenant. Now you'll have to honor the existing lease.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, you can't buy the house with an existing lease and kick them out. You have to honor
Right.
the lease, but
I just didn't know how much that
pick your own.
I don't know how much that should sway your opinion on a potential property.
It should, your tenants should be relatively short term. You know, you're going to hopefully own a property for many years, and they should only be there for 12 months. Right. So if it's dealing, the rents are reasonable, I wouldn't let it stop you. But I've inherited eight units that I bought have inherited tenants, and 6 of them had to be evicted.
Oh, wow.
So
geez.
I made one mistake of, I was buying a package of 5 properties, and right when I got them under contract, 3 people moved out that month. And I said, I'm not going to close on it until you have it, at least 4 of them occupied, which was stupid. I thought it was smart. It was stupid because they just went and put 2 warm bodies.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so
here you go.
But yeah. Here's, if you can fog a mirror, you
put down that will work for food sign and yeah. So it you just says. Yeah, it's you don't realize how, if you've ever walked through like slums or bad, just like 20+ year landlords who just don't care about people anymore, or they're just so jaded and calloused, they'll put any warm body in a house just to get it cash flowing and then kick them out in a 15-day period if they're late. And they're just easy to fill, or quick to fill and quick to evict. And so that's one thing I like about a good property manager, is they should have a very low eviction rate. And so, yeah, inherited tenants you didn't underwrite them. You can ask them you can ask the current landlord for their, their pay stubs and their credit check and all that stuff. Right. Hopefully they kept it, and you can underwrite them yourself, but it's just, if you can avoid it, not always, that's just my experience.
Right. No, it's good to know. Thanks.
Do you, on that duplex you're looking at, Sam, is it, do you know the lease terms of the other side?
Yeah, it's month to month, and it's way under, the rents are really low. But I was talking to my agent there. Her and her husband are big time real estate investors, and her husband went with me to it the other week, and he was just he was telling me like he wouldn't recommend trying to raise rents at this point, especially like with inherited tenants, especially on a month to month, obviously, because I just have to wait till that contract's up. But don't raise any rents until this eviction moratorium is up. And I never considered that. I was just, whenever I was running my numbers, I was like, okay, this is the rent's way low. I'll just, if I were to purchase this, I'll just jack up that rent right off the bat. And he said to kind of hold off on that until that eviction moratorium is up. And so that was a good piece of info that I never even considered.
Yeah, because I think any tenants that I haven't had anybody try to use the eviction moratorium argument to not pay. But
yeah,
they if you pissed them off and try to jack up their rent right after you bought it, I mean, they might try to do that. That's a good point.
Yeah. And I didn't dig into it a whole lot, but the listing agent just said that they were long-term tenants and they were month to month. So I guess they found a pretty sweet deal of paying cheap rent, and were perfectly content with it. And the previous owners were maybe the tenants weren't hassles at all, and were just fine as is. But yeah, that's kind of the situation there.
Interesting. Edwin, so you have a property manager, right? That's going to vet your potential tenants in Mustang.
Yeah, I talked to her and she mentioned like, yes, definitely like there's going to be a tenant inspection, if you will, to go along with the general inspection, and someone on the property management team will walk through the house just from the property management side and say, you know, if this was new, we'd fix up this nick, that thing, resurface this tub, whatnot, just to get an idea of what would need to be done. But I had a walkthrough of 2 of the units this morning from video camming, and everything seems like it's very much in order. I think it's yeah, we'll see. It would definitely be an inherited tenant type situation. So Brett, Ben, I may ping you if I run into some issues, just for some advice there. But I think everyone so far, per the rent rules, has been on time, and I think that they're probably about 15% below market rate right now. But the offer I put in is sort of taking into account, you know, in 12 months or 18 months, it might come up to market or get closer, but also the cash flow for the next 12 months, if this gets accepted, would still be fine. Yeah.
I have a question for Edmond. How did you find your people on the
Yeah.
ground and
Right. I have a friend here. So the one thing I learned from Bigger Pockets is like, tell everybody about that you're into real estate, and then you'll just see what happens. Just kind of see what conversations start. And so I had talked to, I was talking to a friend, and she mentioned her younger brother's girlfriend's family has invested in Oklahoma City. I think they have 5 doors. I think by the end of the year, they'll have 9. And they had worked with this property management company that was part of, like, I guess a bigger entity, and then this one property manager branched off to start her own. And she had sent me, my friend Elena sent me, this was in January, so she sent me sort of the 2020 year-end close, like, financials, and in addition to some email communication that had been proactive, for instance, with sort of the snowy weather, right, that caused some outages. And so I got a chance to see sort of behind the scenes of what level of communication is going out to tenants. You know, they were delivering space heaters to those in need, but also I've appreciated that they were proactively emailing all the landlords to let them know, hey, no issues right now, but this might just come up. You know, and I think they deal with a lot of owners who are remote. And so looking at the fees and just kind of this pricing structure too, I was comfortable with. I think it's tenant placement is 70%. Renewal of contract of a current tenant is $100, which I felt like was kind of low. I don't know if the team here can respond to that. And then they don't put a markup on maintenance costs either, right? So if it costs $30 to fix whatever, you get charged $30. There's not that 10 or 15% surcharge for that.
Is there a certain threshold where they need your approval on certain repairs?
Yeah, I think it's maybe like $200 or $150 or something like that. And then just kind of seeing my friends. My friend had actually only purchased new properties to put under management of this company. So I think the things that kind of came up are lower scope than even what I'm seeing with the Mustang property. But sort of seeing the detailed aspect of it, and then knowing that I think they use Appfolio and they really prep a lot of detailed tax documents for you. I was like, okay, it seems like it's pretty all-inclusive as far as like the information I'm going to be able to get, and seems as if they have good systems built as well. Yeah.
And so your agent that found you the Mustang house, she found you this off-market seller?
Yeah, the reason I went with that agent specifically was more so because this agent like works under the umbrella of this property management company.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so she's kind of like their in-house agent now. I think she was previously Keller Williams or something.
Sure. Is her name Jennifer?
No, her name is Denise. The agent's name is Denise.
Okay.
And so I think I had found the Mustang property myself.
But the agent for the property manager that you're talking to alerted you to some of these off-market deals.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, we'll see. The offer's out there. It expires tomorrow. So we'll see if we get it signed.
Cool.
Yes, very excited.
Let us know how it goes.
Yes, definitely. Definitely. I actually do have another question for folks. I had heard, and I would love to get this verified, that for new builds, new construction, since we talked about that a little bit earlier, I just sent a Zillow link, that a lot of developers don't want to sell to investors. And I wanted to see if anyone had heard that, has seen that. I've heard that part of it is due to financing, where if a certain like community is over X% rental properties, then new home buyers might have issues getting financing, because I've heard lenders don't like that. I've heard also that these developers know they can get higher dollar from people who are going to have it as a primary residence versus an investor. Because the link I just sent, it's like I think it's a near Mustang's division, and I know it's not constructed yet, but they're saying 180,000 for a 1,600 square foot home, brand new. I'm thinking I just paid that for like a 20-year-old house with like less square footage. So I don't know if folks have thoughts on purchasing.
Well, I have a friend that he was trying to. This is in Arkansas. He was buying a home for his daughter, and he was going to rent it out to her and one of her friends. But in this complex, one guy owned 20% of the inventory in this complex, so he couldn't get an FHA loan because I guess there was a assumed risk, because if this one guy,
if he defaults,
was bankrupt or something, 20% of the homes in the area could default. So I'd never heard that before. So he had to get a business loan with a higher interest rate because he couldn't do FHA.
Wow.
Just because this one guy owned a certain percentage. So that may be one reason. So if say there were 20 homes in a new development and one investor comes in and buys 5 of them through financing, other folks may not be able to get loans.
Gotcha. Okay.
On the remaining properties.
Gotcha. I went down like a little Reddit rabbit hole, and I think the consensus was, at least as far as strategies, keep talking to the sales departments, check in once a month. And then when they're down to the last final few, after all the folks who choose it as a primary residence have moved in, then that's when they open it up to investors.
And there might be some, I know there's some HOAs that don't allow you to put for rent signs out in yards. And they try to restrict the number of non-owner occupied homes for obvious reasons.
Okay. Yeah.
And I can tell you on this specific house, this is actually one of my listings. It's
cool.
Yeah, we represent Roush Coleman, who's the new home builder. So specifically, Roush Coleman only allows 10% of each phase to sell to investors.
I see. Okay.
And I know specifically for them, it has nothing to do with lending. I've never, typically condos is where you'll see that. When it's one structure and multiple units, that's where they, like only 30% of the structure can be tenants versus owner occupieds and stuff. But the way they told me is basically per phase, they don't want too many tenants for resale purposes. If their whole first couple of street, because they are a very investor targeted builder for the reason you just said, they have to heavily limit it because otherwise it'll be all investors buying it. And then the second and third phase would be very difficult to sell. They can't ever up prices and do that kind of stuff.
I see. Okay. So that's good context. Thank you.
So that is, they actually have a community up in Piedmont Schools, but it's right off the Kilpatrick, called Robertson Landing. It's their new community. And the owner of Roush Coleman, one of the sons of the owner, bought all 10% for himself. He kept them.
Right.
So no investors can buy in there because he bought them all. It's kind of a dick move, but I guess if you got the money.
Yeah.
So that tells you what he thinks about that rental market, though. He loves it.
Right. Okay.
Cool.
Okay, that's
all right. Anybody got anything else to add? If not, I will wrap this up. Shoot me a message if you want a copy of that presentation I went through earlier today. And then Kelsey and I started a Facebook group. If you haven't got an invitation, let me know. So if anybody, I know another Ben in our group, he put a deal that he had in more on there. So if you find any off-market
yes.
deals or looking for an off-market deal under certain parameters, please share it on that Facebook group.
Awesome.
Cool. Sam, I'm gonna reach
Alright.
out to you on Facebook too.
All right.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah, we'll see you guys in a couple weeks. We'll do the next
Awesome.
one in 2 weeks from today. So,
Thanks for hosting, Ben. Appreciate
all
it.
right, man. Talk to you later.
Awesome.
Bye.
See y'all.